How many games will Raiders win in 2023? Will the greatness of the Raiders rise this season? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here to give you my record prediction for the Raiders in 2023. Giving you my week-by-week, game-by-game analysis and preview of their schedule this season. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and let me know in the comments how many games will the Raiders win this season. Let's go. Raider Nation, it's time to predict the Raiders' record beginning in Denver versus the Broncos, a team that you swept last year. Sean Payton now in town for the Broncos. I kind of think that gives the Raiders a bit of an upper hand early in the year in week one, despite this game being in Denver, because the Raiders aren't the team now that's adjusting to a new regime, a new culture, a new offense, a new defense. This is the second year for the Raiders, a lot of these players. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo's new, but he's also not because he knows the system already from New England. Denver is going to have to adjust to the Sean Payton way, and the great coach that Payton is, it's not going to click right away for the identity of this team. It's going to take time for the Broncos to get to where he wants them to go. So I think this helps the Raiders go into Denver. They're going to run the football on the Broncos. They're going to score points on the Broncos. They are going to dictate this game. I think Russell Wilson is inconsistent. Crosby, Chandler Jones, Tyree Wilson do enough here to allow the Raiders to win. Week number 2, you play the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. I'm going with the Bills. One key factor here is Josh McDaniels. He actually struggled in his later years with the Patriots to put up points on the Buffalo Bills with Sean McDermott and his defensive scheme. Now, the Bills may not be the same defensive team they once were, but you have Josh Allen throwing to Stephon Diggs. Kind of a bit of a mismatch for a underwhelming Raiders secondary, and you combine the history of McDermott versus McDaniels. I'm going Bills. Week 3, the Raiders will pick up the win in a revenge spot from last year over the Steelers. This is Sunday Night Football at home. Huge game. And I like the Raiders in the home opener to beat the Steelers. This is a 70s rivalry game. The place is going to be absolutely on fire. I think the Raiders, Josh McDaniels, on the other hand, we talked about Sean McDermott. He's done fairly well against Tomlin in the past. Last year, they blew a lead versus the Steelers. I don't think they do that this year. When you think about the two teams, the Steelers are all about the outdoor, tough, gritty game, that environment they played in last year. This year is going to be a dome environment. It's going to be high flying. I think that favors the Raiders at home. Week number 4, I've got the Chargers beating the Raiders, and I have the two teams splitting. I have the Raiders winning later in the season on Thursday Night Football in Week 15. I think that game favors the Raiders on a short week at home, and I think the first game does slightly favor the Chargers after the Raiders have to play the Bills, and then they have to play a Sunday night against the Steelers. That's going to be heated, and now you play the Chargers, which in LA, it is also going to be a 50-50 split, and it might even be pro-Raiders. So the fan thing is not a big deal. I just don't see Herbert losing 2 games to the Raiders and the Raiders defense. I do think that the Raiders have a formula to run the football, to possess the football, that could make life difficult on the Chargers if their run defense continues to stink. But I'm going to take the Chargers to outduel the Raiders in one of these matchups. Week 5, I'm going to take the Raiders at home on Monday Night Football. Jordan Love, Week 5, early in the year. It's going to be a tough environment. It might even be his first primetime game on the road. So I like the Raiders for those reasons. I also just don't see a lot on the Packers offense that's going to give the Raiders defense a ton of issues, despite the Raiders defense maybe not being the most inspiring unit. And then on top of that, The Packers, I just don't think their defense is going to be able to handle Devontae Adams in a revenge setting. Week 6, I got the Patriots to get revenge on the Raiders after Jacoby Myers handed them a win last year and did his first favor for the Raiders. Now he is a member of the Raiders, but I like the Patriots defense. I think it's strong. And then an offense now that's going to be, hopefully, as a Pats fan, fixed by Bill O'Brien. I think just the creativity and the preparation that he'll bring to the table will help them outplay the Raiders in this game. I wouldn't rule out this game as a win for the Raiders because McDaniels knows Belichick and he knows the Patriots well. He knows Mac Jones, but I think New England is the overall more complete team, and I think this year they won't mess it up. Week 7, I've got the Raiders beating the Bears on the road, going to Chicago, Jimmy Garoppolo returning to Illinois, and I just don't think the Bears defense has what it takes to slow down the Raiders offense. Week 8, I've got the Lions beating the Raiders. This is another close game. It's in a similar environment to Las Vegas, dome setting. It's going to be high flying, high scoring, back and forth between two good offenses. I just have the home team slightly edging out the Raiders. Then week 9, I've got the Raiders beating the Giants and then the Raiders losing to the Jets in the two New York matchups back to back. If they can win both these, that'd be huge, right? They're both at home, both New York teams coming to Las Vegas. That's going to be interesting. But I think they'll win one, but not both. I think both these teams are borderline playoff teams. I think they'll win one, but not both. And I'm choosing to go with beat Daniel Jones, lose to Aaron Rodgers. Really that simple. I will say, though, with the Giants, they give off different coaching matchups. The Giants, Brian Daboll knows McDaniels from his Patriots days and his Bills days. The Jets, Robert Saleh was owned by McDaniels while he was in New England. So it's almost reverse from coaching, but I think the talent for the Jets will overwhelm the Raiders, while the Raiders are more of a similar level to the Giants, plus they're at home, so I think they'll win that game. Week 11, I think the Dolphins beat the Raiders. I just think they're too explosive to handle for the Raiders defense, and it's in Miami. Week 12, I'm going to go with the Chiefs to beat the Raiders. This is a game that could be close going into the bye week. The Raiders, they could pull off an upset here, but I'm not going to be too bold on that one. Then they play the Vikings. I actually think the Vikings are going to beat the Raiders in a shootout. I think there's going to be many games at home that come down to the wire, and I think this is just going to be one that you lose. It's not too crazy. You could easily win this game, but Justin Jefferson, they added a rookie in the first round at wide receiver in Jordan Addison. Of course, they have Dalvin Cook and TJ Hawkinson. Really good offense. Kevin O'Connell coming to town. The defense isn't so good, but what I'll say about the Vikings is Brian Flores, he knows McDaniels, right? Two Patriots guys. I think that that's the edge that the Vikings bring in that matchup. The Raiders could also beat the Chiefs on Monday night. I think there's a chance they beat them once this year, and that could be all the difference in their season, but I just can't say that they will, so I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Then I think the Raiders drop a kind of embarrassing game to the Colts. The Colts won't be a very good team this year, but by the end, they'll be giving a lot of teams a lot of fits because they do have talent on defense. They beat the Raiders last year, and Richardson has the makings of going off in some matchups this season because of his athleticism, and I think they'll sweep the Broncos to end the season. So overall, I have the Raiders at 7-10, which might be a bit disappointing for some Raiders fans. And overall, I'm trying to come in to this season for the Raiders a little bit lower than usual. I'm usually too high on the Raiders. I'm usually too rah-rah for the Raiders. I'm usually too, in their corner, cheering them on because I want to see the Raiders be good. I especially love this version of the Raiders. I got my guy Josh McDaniels. I got my guy Jimmy Garoppolo now. A bunch of Patriot blood in there. So I love to see the Raiders be successful just for football's sake. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm going to keep it even, balanced, and I think realistically the Raiders will improve this year. They'll win more close games. But you got to factor in Jimmy Garoppolo's health and his history with health. And then on top of that, you've got to factor in how good is the defense? A lot of questions. This is a tough schedule. Still, I don't think they're better than the Chargers and the Chiefs in the division. I think they'll be right there with the Broncos once again, but they will be a more promising team this year. And if they did make the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked. They have the talent to pull it off. They'll just have to get a couple of games to go their way, like the Vikings, like the Jets, maybe the Lions. Maybe you upset the Chiefs in one game. Maybe you beat the Colts. So if they're able to do that, they could easily flip this into a 10-7 and into a wild card berth, and then who knows from there. But that's my opinion. Gronk, spike the like button. Let me know in the comments. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.